Okay, good afternoon, everyone. This is my discussion for an additional topic for your third quarter, being human. Okay, what will the world be like in year 2020, or let's say year 2030? Will computers improve quality of life? Will living with technology be more tiresome, frustrating, and security driven? What do you think if you are to live in 2030? So, currently, computers are changing our lives, it's changing how we do things. But before what we have today, there were four computer driven revolutions. The first one was in 1960s, where there is a mainframe era, where one computer will be used by a lot of users. Then the second era is the personal computer era. This is the time where Steve Jobs and Bill Gates were able to produce computer systems, your monitor and CPU and keyboard and the mouse. This time, in this era, 1980s, you had one computer per user. By 2000s, it was already the mobility era where several computers were used per user. Let's say, for example, one person will get two gadgets, two, three gadgets. Then on 2020 and beyond, you will have the ubiquity era where a person now can handle thousands of computers. So we do a lot of things already. One person used to tend a lot of computers, especially if you do online jobs, you will be using more computers. So the computers change the way we undertake day-to-day activities from digital cameras to smartphones. Okay, so and as well as our gestures is now also changed using GUIs. So this is an example of the reactable table where you move objects on the table. Touchscreen also, the concept of the touchscreen, the technology rather. Then the Wii device, you could play golf, tennis, or anything using this device. You could also play music or pretend that it's a guitar using your smartphones. And then there is a smart fabrics. They are now trying to produce a fabric where it's digitalized. Handsets, from the bulky one to our smartphones today. Robots. Robots are used to be only seen on TVs or cartoons. Now they are available, especially in China and Japan. Some robots, their expertise is to clean the floor, like this one, the Roomba. Then we have digital footprints, where according to Gordon Bell of Microsoft, Flickr, where you are able to store so much photos. Okay, you could share those photos as well. So there are other also websites available nowadays who could do this kind of service. And it has also changed the way we learn things. So we have here an ambient periscope from Ambient Wood of Yvonne Rogers. This is an example of an ambient wood. We also have AudioVox Digital Message Center, where you could leave messages. Okay. This kind of technology is also affecting family lives. Then you have a Sony's iToy, the Second Life game, the Wii. See, the granny is playing now bowling at home without actually going to a bowling center. Then you have also changing societies. This technology that we have today, it has also changed our environment, our society. So selling phones in South Africa will look like this. And if you could just imagine all the vehicles, or this is what we call the EDSA, traveling all together. See how traffic it has. You could see in the image how traffic the area is congested rather. So the transformations of our interaction towards computers. So we have human values in the face of all of these changes comes into this the following: the end of the interface stability, the growth of techno dependency, the growth of hyperconnectivity, and end of the ephemeral, lastly, the growth of creative engagement. So let's start with end of interface stability. Interface stability. So we have here an example of electronic sensing jewelry. And then we also have flexible borders using Bluetooth technology. So what are the questions that you could use refer to the phrase for this phrase? In end of interface stability. Possible questions will be: how will we know what computational resources are available within us and how this will interact with those around us? Another one will be: what interaction techniques are appropriate if embedded devices have no explicit recognizable interface? What are other devices that can be embedded on us? Okay. Will more intimate devices mean old concepts of the interface become obsolete and irrelevant? Maybe we don't know. Okay. So let's make it broader. Will embedding of biosensing devices be acceptable for cases of extreme frailty or illness, or for other purposes too? What do you think? Should the bodily functions of people be allowed to be monitored without their awareness or permission? Lastly, how should we access and control information from intimate embodied devices? So these questions leads to the interface of stability, humans as we are. Okay. So we are shifting boundaries. So let's say, for example, for shifting boundaries, questions. How should new interaction techniques be merged with pre-existing skills dealing with everyday objects? If everything we see, touch, or walk past is interactive, how will we know and how can we control interaction? Imagine yourself. Everything you touch or see or walk upon will generate something, will be interactive. How are you going to control your interaction towards these devices? How useful are conventional definitions of use and users? Let's think broader questions. How acceptable will indirect interaction be to society? Will people need to be provided with an indication that they have initiated an interaction? Lastly, should people be allowed to opt in or out of a more connected, interactive world? So you post this video and try to answer those questions by yourselves. Let's continue. For computational ecosystem, interaction between intelligent agents with or without our knowledge. So questions for interaction design. How do we enable people to understand the complexity of new ecosystems of technologies and consequences of interacting with them? What happens when things stop working or breaks down? How should information be passed between interconnected devices, and how will security and privacy be managed? For broader impact, how will we understand the complexity of our interactions sufficiently to control them and prohibit actions that are considered unacceptable to society? How can we legislate for local interactions having potentially global effects? Who will be responsible for preventing breakdowns, fixing problems, and protecting society from undesirable consequences of this ecosystem? Okay, now let's move. to the growth of techno dependency. Imagine yourself being dependent on technology, human values. So new technologies are built on top of the old ones. Okay. So we have the eye garment. So the questions for interaction design. Will there be ever increasing expectations for better and faster technologies? And what does this mean for new technologies we design? What will be the taken for granted skill sets and understandings of future generations? Lastly, how do we design technologies to help people cope in an increasing tech dependent world when the infrastructures break down? Try to ponder these questions. Questions for brooding. If numeric skills can be supplemented by calculators, what other skills will become obsolete? So society be concerned? Is technology to be blamed for accidents and disasters, or are designers and developers responsible? As a society grows ever dependent on technology, who is actually accountable? Hmm? Next, growth of hyperconnectivity. What's our human values for that? So everywhere we go, we tend to bring along our technology, especially the internet. We have laptops, mobile phones, Wi-Fi, pocket Wi-Fi's. So we should always we'll always check if there is an internet available in the locations that we want to stay. Facebook. Facebook has become borderless. We are all posting almost everything there. In Japan, they have this kind of technology. Questions for interaction and design. How can technology help us manage our availability to others? And what information should be made available? What new codes of etiquette will come into play? How much should new technologies and services be designed to take this into account? How can new communication technologies be designed to let people know that the people they meet digitally really are who they say they are? Broader impact. What are the appropriate social structures and practices needed to help us live in a connected world, and how do they relate to our current practice? What impact will large scale social networks have upon us, our families and friends, and society at large? How should we properly police a connected society for the benefit of all without technologies of connection becoming misused? So we also have digital crowds. Also put this on Facebook. We do crowdsourcing and other things. Stalking is so much easier nowadays, and given the technology that we have, especially on photos that we are posting online. Stalking is one of the skill sets of humans nowadays. Questions for interaction design. What are the patterns of interaction that merge as local actions spark interaction and reaction on a mass scale? Fake news. How would you know it's a fake news? How can we deal with potential negative effects of instant and widespread dissemination of information and misinformation? I can relate to this. I have a story. There is an elementary student who was randomly asked, who do you think is the most popular mayor of the Philippines? And the child answered Vico Soto. For the child, Vico Soto became popular as a mayor because it was part of an example in a subject where it stated that Vico Soto is one of the best mayors in the Philippines, where in fact, that still has to be proven. There should be a rating, there should be processes to declare that Vico Soto is indeed the best mayor of in the entire Philippines. So that's misinformation. The book could have at least provided a different name, a random name. Anyway, let's move. How do we design tools and infrastructures to allow digital crowds to form without overloading the infrastructure? Then, for broader impact, how can technologies be used to effectively assemble and mobilize groups of people to tackle global problems? This would be better if we use technology for in tackling global problems. How should the global impact of interaction be handled, and what impact will increased connectivity with remote world events have? What is the role of government and legislation in shaping acceptable behavior of digital crowds? In the Philippines, digital crowds is an issue. Next, the end of the ephemeral. So we have to manage our digital footprints. That's why we have to provide authentications. So what tools and technologies are needed to effectively manage vast quantities of personal data? Indeed. What can the privacy and security of digital footprints be ensured? How can we do that? How do people find out about their digital footprint, and what tools should be provided? What do you think? For broader impact, how should society manage the storage and access of human data ethically and responsibly? Will people have the right to have information removed from the digital footprints? What are the legal implications of a growing digital footprint that maintains a record of our present and past? So we are actually living in increasingly monitored world, especially nowadays that CCTVs is all over. Even houses have it, residential houses have it. Barangay, posts, okay? So they all have CCTV stuff. So we are actually monitored. Okay, for example, this one also, an instance where the father was able to detect that his teenager was pregnant before father did. How Target figured out the teenager was pregnant before her father did. Questions for interaction and design. How can monitoring technologies be designed to give feedback and control to those being observed when it is considered desirable? Should people be able to opt out of being monitored? And how do we design technology to do this? Yes, how do we do that? How can the capture of information and the need for privacy be balanced through design? Broader impact. What ethical guidelines are needed for managing monitored information, and how these are reviewed and implemented? Whose responsibility is it to ensure that systems for monitoring are designed to balance the rights of individuals with those of society? How do we ensure the monitoring of activities or changes in the behavior of groups for the better? Lastly, the growth of creative engagement. Everybody's a vlogger, right? See, aside from being a vlogger, everybody is also has turned into a musician. Marami nang lumalabas ng mga DJs and everything. Okay? Is further automation the way forward for augmenting human thinking and problem solving? How can the interaction and design of new computational tools be structured so they do not impede creative engagement? What new toolkits can be developed to enable scientists to create tools for themselves to solve their own problems and explore new avenues? Broader impact. What will such tools mean for the nature of expertise in the future? Will scientists become too dependent on tools? If so, what does this mean for the nature of the invention and discovery? Can we really do away with computers? Will computer-based tools eventually become so complex that they can no longer be understood by the people who develop them? What do you think? Will that happen? So we have new forms of creative engagement, such as the Microsoft Surface. The table has turned into a touchscreen, and you're able to explore the internet through this device. Or a whiteboard that is so interactive that professors just have to write over and then perform discussions automatically. What is the role of interaction design when people exert more control over their digital resources and tools? What will the toolkits of 2030 be like if they are to encourage new and creative users? Can tools be developed to encourage good design? Broader impact. Who is accountable when amateurs build badly designed software? Who is responsible for having the bigger vision of what technologies can and should do? How will new forms of creative engagement change the role and ultimately the fate of the software developer, the designer, and the usability of engineering? So HCI has to understand and analyze human values, moral and ethical aspects of designing technologies for new domains, societal impact, and moral concerns. The nature of the user experience will be examined objective qualities. How does it feel to use an object? The pleasure, aesthetics, fun, flow, boredom, annoyance, and confusion. Examining what is desirable within culture, within society, privacy, health, ownership, fair play, and security. So HCI is values laden. When we create, we design something, we have to think of human values. For your assignment, do the following.